Hi, everybody. I hope you're all doing well on this, well, at least for me, this very hot but beautiful summer afternoon. I'm in Texas this week, and I know at least one of you. I'm pretty close to where you are here. I'm excited to be in Texas. I actually grew up here, so I'm visiting. Um, I can work remotely, obviously, and then I'm visiting some family and some friends through summer reunions. So it's always fun to be back in my home state. So, but boy, it's hot. Lots of sun, lots of dry heat, but it's what I grew up with. So I hope you're all having a great summer so far and enjoying some really good weather, whatever you like to do and whatever kind of weather you like. Um, hope it's been being good for you. Thanks for joining today. Excited to talk with you about this topic. This one really hits on something that's really tight with my background and something that I know a lot about and like to talk about. And I really like to um, work with those looking for jobs on what are the things that really kind of help you stand out. Um, being an interviewer and a recruiting manager uh, and someone who evaluated the process and kind of set up the process for others, we really looked a lot at the criteria and the capabilities that help to differentiate people that we thought would make good employees versus those that would make kind of so-so employees. And a lot of employers do that. So we're going to talk today about the things that go beyond what I think most people think about as the standards when you're looking for a job. And hopefully it'll get you thinking a little bit beyond maybe what you currently kind of concentrate on, whether it's in writing your resume, whether it's in preparing for an interview, but also even how you approach your work. I'm going to encourage you to, in your work, or whether it's employment work or school work, to think about what you do on a day-to-day basis and to make sure that you are approaching it and taking notes on the things you're accomplishing, and if you're not accomplishing what you should be or what you want to be, that'll help you make a difference and stand out later. Then you seek those opportunities out. Okay, so that's what today is all about, and this is setting the stage now that we're in the middle of July to help to get you prepared for future recruiting season. So those of you in the that are students or in the education environment, I always took, from about late July through August as a very important preparation time to make sure, everything's ready by the first part of September for the heavy fall recruiting season. And we're going to have a series of webinars over the next few weeks that are going to be doing that. So this is, one of the steps in that process to hopefully get you prepared to really make the most out of that fall recruiting season back on campus if you're a student or if you want to enter a job search. Okay, get prepared now, and then your actual recruitment efforts will be more effective. All right, for those of you new to this webinar series, I welcome questions. And what we typically do is you can post the questions at any time during the webinar, and you can do that in the question panel of your webinar toolbox. All right. If you do not know where that is, look for an orange button with a little arrow and click on it, and it should open up the toolbox. And then you'll look for a row that says questions, and that should open up your question panel. If you type in a question, it'll log for me, and then I'm the presenter today, so I will not monitor them throughout the session, but I will look at them towards the end of the session and address your questions at that time. Okay, but don't wait until the end to post your questions. If I say something at the beginning of the presentation that really really starts a question for you, or makes you think, wonder about something, go ahead and get it in there at that time, just so you don't forget about it. All right. Okay. So we are recording this, just as I think most of you know that, and it probably made an announcement. We will make this recording available on our YouTube channel. Typically takes a few days. But once that recording gets up, I'll send you all a link to it, and then you can share it if you'd like, if you found that this was valuable, and maybe it will be helpful to a colleague or a friend, or a fellow student. Okay. All right. So, with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And I mentioned that this webinar topic is something that's really kind of near and dear to my heart. Going back on my roles in industry, where I recruited myself both for accounting and finance jobs and client service type roles as well. We really wanted to get beyond what were those candidates that were going to make the most, the best employees, which of course is the goal of every employer, right? Who are going to be the good employees, all right? But to answer that question is really quite hard, because you really have to dig into something that is beyond kind of the basics, all right? So we'll talk about those those additional capabilities, and what the definition of those are, and how you can demonstrate those, and prepare to talk about them while you're looking for a job. So, the basics really are the point of entry. And in the basics, I'm talking about a degree in accounting, as an example, or you're seeking, or you have the CPA certification, all right? Or maybe it's an enrolled agent. Okay, so different technical, functional certifications, degrees, classwork. Perhaps it's the schools. Some employers look at specific schools, and schools will indicate the success of your educational endeavors. Obviously, your GPA, same thing there. And those are all important, accomplishments and things that you've earned and gained over the years, or maybe you're gaining at this current time. And they are truly valuable, pieces of evidence about what you can bring to the table to any job. And the importance of those is not going to go away, right? Just in line with those, I'm sure you've all heard about, hey, soft skills, or your interpersonal capabilities. And yes, those two are absolutely important. But they're really also, in my mind, baseline. They're requirements at the point of entry. You have to have them. Maybe a little bit harder to assess whether you have them or not, compared to like what your GPA is. But you have to be able to communicate, right? You have to be able to work with other people. And you can look, employers can look for evidence or examples of where you've led, maybe been an officer in an organization or led a team. But those are all kind of expected, and as part of, we want an accounting major with a 3.2 GPA seeking the CPA that has been an officer in an organization. They're kind of like checkpoints to get into the game, all right? So, it's good to have those. You've got to pursue them. You need to prepare yourself to be able to demonstrate that you have all these things. But here's the kicker. There's going to be a lot of other people that have those same attributes as you, that are putting you at that baseline or point of entry for an accounting position. Okay? And that's where the difficulty comes in. You've got to go above and beyond those baseline characteristics to make sure that you stand out. And don't let it discourage you, because I know a lot of effort goes into attaining your degree, as an example, or attaining that CPA. So those accomplishments are still very significant and very valuable from your career from this point forward. But just know that you know, for good or bad. That the point is, you're going to push yourself harder. You want to go beyond and be able to talk about some additional things. And what are those additional things? Okay. So, well, before we get actually to the additional things, let's talk about why this is important. I just mentioned your peer group, and a lot of people will have those same kind of points of entry requirements. We've talked on previous webinars about the number of resumes that recruiters get, or the people that are involved with the hiring process. So just remember that they're really, sometimes you could have thousands of resumes depending upon the firm or the company. And even at one school, for one posting of one job, sometimes I would see in payrolls 400 to 500 resumes posted for a single position. All right. So just a matter of practicality that, again, recruiters can easily screen for those basics. Do they have a degree I want? Do they have the GPA that's needed? Or they have the school that we have targeted? And, often they'll go beyond, or they should, in my opinion, go beyond specific schools, but sometimes they will definitely look at school. And then they'll look for some of those exhibits of types of activities, maybe it's 1 or 2 internships, might be a leadership position, as I mentioned before, okay? Interviewers then will get that narrowed list of candidates that have started from the big pile of resumes, narrowed down to, okay, all these people have the minimum requirements, and they look pretty good. Maybe even some of those on the interview list go beyond those minimum requirements. But still, even there at the interview stage, it's several candidates. You might have, on, say, an interview day at a school, there might be 10 candidates talking with one interviewer for one position. Okay, so very likely the company is not going to extend 10 offers, right? So you're still working with, even though it's more narrow, you're still working with a fairly large size group of peers where you need to stand out to get that 1 to 2 to 3 offers that could come from that interview day. All right. And then let's go beyond recruiting, even beyond the getting past the screening stage or interviewing. When you have your job and then you're being evaluated for performance, managers, depending upon the company, but often managers have to compare and even rank their employees against one another, okay? Even if they don't have to rank, they still have to evaluate you. And we'll talk in a little bit about, don't make the assumption that your manager knows what you're doing, okay? Managers are often very, very busy, and they can't necessarily keep, detailed tabs on all your accomplishments, all the work and responsibilities that you have. So, for each of these purposes, whether it's in the recruiting stage or if it's when you already have a position and thinking about evaluation type purposes, and the interests are the same. Managers, interviewers, recruiters, they need to identify contributors or potential contributors, leaders or potential leaders, those who can lead in the future, and those that make a difference, okay? And so these are points that you really need to make sure that you communicate how you contribute, what you have contributed, how you lead, and how you make a difference, and the way you go about making a difference as your approach. Sorry for my coughing here. So let's talk about some of those specifics about what employers really want to see. So remember, your degree, your GPA, your activities, your ability to communicate. And remember, a resume is a communication tool, so they've been able to see at least a form of written communication initially. These are all important, but you're beyond that point. You're beyond that baseline. So to take you beyond that and really help you stand out, recruiters will look at some of these things. Specific accomplishments. And what I mean by that, you need to make it very understandable and go into some detail. Okay? Ideally, this will be quantifiable. All right? Listing, often your accomplishments will come in the section of your work experience. So, if in a job role, if you list your responsibilities, okay, it's good to know what kind of tasks you did and what you were responsible for. But to really bring it to life to an interviewer or to a manager, you need to talk about not just what tasks you did, but what did those tasks accomplish? What did you accomplish? What did you help solve, right? Did you go beyond results? And how did you take it and met your responsibilities, but even better, how you took it beyond what your basic responsibilities are and what you achieved beyond that. That will raise the eyes of a lot of people. So that'll show that you're a go-getter. It'll show that you were successful and you also went above and beyond. Okay? So when you're thinking about how you describe your work, go beyond just saying, this is what the job entailed. These are the tasks I did day to day. Okay? You can communicate those, but communicate them in a way that was results-oriented and accomplishment-oriented. And if you're in a role now, really put a focus on, okay, am I doing things beyond what's expected of me? Am I accomplishing a lot and solving problems and really going beyond what my base job is? If you're not, then think about, the benefit that you can get by doing that. Not only will it help serve you in your current role, with maybe an evaluation coming up, it will also make a very good story if you are, say, in an internship now and looking for a position later. Okay? So specific accomplishments, you need to describe them around the results, the successes of the tasks that you performed. Impactful communication. We talked about, and it certainly is no new news that communication is a critical skill, right? For really anybody. Well, certainly in a business setting. But here too, in your interview setting, you'll be able to kind of show firsthand your verbal communication. In a work setting, depending on if it's a teamwork or more heads down, whatever interactions you have with your manager, with your fellow teams, with your partners, you'll be able to demonstrate your verbal communication. Any written communication is going to be tied to your capabilities in communication. But when you're talking about the skill in an interview setting, so sorry about my coughing. When you're talking about the communication skill, again, here go to how your communication was effective. Okay, how perhaps you organized a team that was maybe not, working well together, and you brought them together, and you were able to, basically set up and get the communication flowing amongst the different team members. That is one way to show that not only were you a leader, but you also used your communication capabilities to aid in teamwork. For client work, perhaps if you are given the task of communicating audit results, that's a way that you have been dependent upon and to use your communication skills to communicate results, to effectively work with the client, and to give them, basically deliver your work to the client. It's a very good specific way that you can demonstrate the evidence that you have strong communication skills. Okay, so use examples how those skills have been used in the past effectively, either with teams, with clients, in class, at work, whatever the case may be. Okay, so those are two areas that I, probably accomplishments and communication areas I feel it, or I bet that you have thought about before, that maybe, again, not gone as far down the road as you possibly could. So take those examples to a detailed explanation, to something that's memorable and shows and demonstrates how you have the skills they're seeking. These next skills, probably, when reading them, they're really not skills, they're more characteristics, okay? And these are less talked about, but I can tell you that they are just as important. This passion one, actually, in my mind, was the one that I keyed off probably most in making final decisions on candidates that otherwise were similar. Passion, in my mind, can make or break a career of someone that has strong capabilities and potential to have tremendous success. Passion can make or break whether someone enjoys what they're doing and whether a team really enjoys what they're doing. I think passion in your work is critical. Assessing that can be a little bit more difficult, but there are some ways that you can demonstrate that you have passion for something you're doing now, or something that you want to do if you're in a job-seeking type of environment. You've got to show, talk about, give evidence that you love the opportunity, okay? How do you do that? How do you show that you love something? Well, let's take a job interview type situation. If you're going in to talk to a company, you make sure that before you go in to interview, you have read upon the job position, read the job description in detail. You've researched the company or the firm pretty good, with pretty good amount, an hour or two of research. That might sound like a lot, but remember, this could be, setting your career on the right path. If you don't have the knowledge of, the strengths, the weaknesses of the firm, really what the job is about, you really can't demonstrate a passion for it. If you don't do that research and you go into an interview, you're not going to be able to ask the questions that you should ask. You probably won't be able to tie your experience effectively to the job. And it's going to be real clear to the interviewer that this person didn't even take time to look up who we are, or what I do, or what this job is about. And it will probably, in the interviewer's mind, cut out the possibility of you moving forward right at that point. Okay? Beyond that, if you don't have the interest to do the research, to read about the company, to prepare, then you should probably ask yourself, like, well, how excited about this am I, right? I know that sometimes finding an hour, before an interview is really tough. I get it, but it's really, truly an hour well spent if it's determining your future career path, right? So, and if you're not that excited about getting ready for the interview, that should tell yourself something. So, passion. Now, if you already have a job and you don't have to really research to know to get the job, but you should also assess if you have a passion for the work that you're doing. And once again, I'm a really strong believer that passion is a really key attribute to being successful in your career. It is the point that that makes you want to go above and beyond. Where you want to continue to learn, maybe spend some extra time. You don't see it just as drudgery or just as work, but it's like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. When you're at that point where it's like, I'm enjoying this. Yes, it's work. We can't get around that, work is work and all that. But you really enjoy what you're learning, what you're doing. You want to learn more. You look forward to what you have coming up. That's passion. Grasp onto it, communicate it, let it really thrive inside of you, and then demonstrate that, hey, this is my thing. This is great. I found my niche. Determination. Another key attribute that, will be the underlying pin for an employee to either do what's needed to be done or not. And passion and determination go hand in hand. They are different, though. Okay? You can be passionate about something and want to do something, but if you could reach an obstacle, it's like, well, okay, I'm going to kind of give up now. That's not showing strong determination. And I can tell you that you're going to reach obstacles, you'll run into challenges. It's just a part of work life. And what managers need and what partners need are employees who will, not run away from the challenges and maybe not even have to be given kind of a handbook of how you address the challenges, but those that can, once they run into something that's difficult, okay, if they don't know how to do it, they'll figure it out. I had a very senior leader one time tell me, as we were determining the university recruiting strategy, we were talking about, all these skills and, what degrees we wanted and what GPA was going to be the cutoff for a minimum point. He said, all this is good, but really what I care about, I really don't, and this is his mind, he didn't care that much about GPA. He didn't care that much about school. I mean, which school. He did care that somebody was successful in attaining a degree. He said, but really, what was important to him, he used the analogy of, I wanted to be able to push someone into the deep end of a swimming pool that doesn't know how to swim, and they can figure out how to make it to the edge. Now, not literally, of course, right? But it was a really good picture of his need to be able to build his team of people that, you can put them in situations that you can't anticipate and they're not prepared for yet, right? But they have the potential to still be successful and to figure it out. And that's the way a lot of work is. You can't anticipate what's coming down the road. You can't study or learn about every single circumstance before it actually occurs. Therefore, you can't necessarily plan for your actions before you need to make them. But if you have the determination to figure it out, then you can still be very successful. And in fact, more successful than maybe even someone who has more experience in something else, because you're able to adapt to whatever circumstances kind of come your way. Okay? So, determination is something that you want to demonstrate to employers on, and you can use past examples of how you have figured things out, how you have not given up, and how you have really just fought through on something that was difficult, but you still were able to come out on the other side. Okay. Also, next one on collaboration and work ethic. So I kind of group these two together. Often they're separate, but I think there's a natural synergy on both of these. You know, because you know, collaborating with other people or even one other person to accomplish things and also accomplish them in the right way, and keeping in mind the broader perspective is where I think a lot of the work ethic comes in. Right? You can work hard, you can forge ahead, but I think it's always important to make sure that you keep in mind, you know, either the team that you're working with, the company that you're representing, the client that you're supporting and representing, and continuously collaborating, you know, for that effort. So the ability to demonstrate that you are a good team member, that you work well with others, that you can both lead and be a follower on teams, and that you work hard in that type of environment are the examples that will support this important capability of collaboration and work ethic. Now, values and how you approach your job is, in my mind, all about cultural fit with the particular company that or firm that you're working for, that you're considering. And cultural fit can go a long way to helping you be successful long term, right? If there's a mismatch of fit with a position, what I found is that then the employment the relationship is very short term. You know, usually an employee can tolerate things, whether it's, you know, a work-life balance that's really not in line with what they want, whether it's the type of work, and approach to work attitude, you know, if it's not in line, people can again tolerate that for the short term, but often it's not going to last very long, and you'll be faced with, you know, wanting to look for another position elsewhere, or you might be faced with having to look for another position elsewhere just because, you know, again, the fit isn't there, and often that can be really felt and seen even sometimes in the way that the workflow and that collaboration that either plays out or doesn't. Okay, so those values are things that interviewers will try to understand about you. And again, a big one is often the work-life balance. What are you seeking in your employment? Does that fit with the way, you know, things usually happen at the firm? And you want to be honest in all things, but, you know, don't try to fit yourself into a hole that really doesn't fit you. Okay. And then lastly, flexibility. We talked a little bit about, you know, adaptation, being able to figure things out when we talked about determination. But the flexibility put us kind of standalone because it's not just the ability, but also I think strongly is the willingness to be able to figure things out, to be able to look at things differently, to be able to maybe change your ways to something else. So you may be determined to do something and again kind of push things through, but you also need to do it with a flexible heart to where you are willing and happy to do this, and you just understand this is the way the work is. This is the way, my career goes. I can't, if something changes, I know I can figure it out, but you know what? I'm okay with that because I understand also, and that's just the reality of things. So that kind of attitude and approach to adaptation and the need to change is something that's really very important to managers and partners, because they need to know that the people can not only, do the work, not only change, not only, really have the desire for what they're doing, but they're also understand and have the positive approach that their role, their skills may have to adapt, and that's just the way that the work flows, and they're going to do it and for the betterment of them and for the betterment of the firm. Okay. Now, I wanted to show you this next screen because this is it's actually two, I guess, interview guides that I've used in the past. And it's just to show you how little the technical skills can actually be emphasized in an interview. Now, again, know that when you get to an interview stage, usually it's already been reviewed that you have the degree, or you have the one internship, or the GPA that's desired. Okay? But still, a lot of people expect that in an interview, they'll still talk about their accounting skill level or the accounting tasks that they've done. But take a look at this. And again, these are actual interview guides that I've used. On the left-hand side is one interview, and the right-hand side is second interview. So this was a setup that we used when one candidate would be interviewed by two people. And the two people would be assessing different capabilities of the one candidate, and then they would come together at the end of the interview day and kind of compare their results to get a full picture of that one candidate. All right. So, and these were 45-minute slots, 30 minutes approximately allocated to talking with the candidate, with about 15 minutes of kind of closing out, saying goodbye, thank you, and then completing the evaluation. And I can say that often the talking part of the interview went a little bit beyond 30 minutes and maybe to 35 minutes or so. But this is, for demonstration purposes, you can see that over the allocated time, emphasis was put on, if you look at the first interview, organizational fit, the focus on client success, which is the evidence of accomplishments, specific accomplishments, continuous personal development, which tied back to passion, someone who was passionate enough to continue improving themselves in this field. Flexibility, handling ambiguity. All those up to that point, you're, pardon me, you're at 24 minutes, okay, of a 30-minute allocated time. Technical and job fit, 0 minutes allocated in this interview around technical job fit. And then you spend about 6 minutes closing out, allowing the candidate to ask questions back to you, any follow-up questions or continuation of, one of the topics above. And then, of course, throughout the whole interview, you would be assessing communication skills, right? And then you close out the interview and move on. Then that same candidate would go and interview with, the other interviewer. And then that second interview, they'd greet each other, say hello, thank you for, being interested, that welcome, right? And then the time would be allocated on 18 minutes for success in solving problems, cooperation and teamwork, and making quality judgment and work results. And those are tied back to the specific accomplishments. So you're at 20 minutes, and then you finally get to technical job fit. The plan was to spend about 5 minutes talking about specific role, tasks, responsibilities around the accounting job. And then you close out any follow-up questions from the candidates, and then you close out the interview. Okay, so I hope this gives a picture, a real life example of how, again, yes, technical job fit is important, but at this stage, you're past the basics, and really the far majority of the time is spent on understanding these other capabilities that are so important to employers and seeing how you can demonstrate what you have done and how you approach things so that you will give an evidence and indication of what you will do in the future, how you will approach things in the future, and what kind of potential you have in future roles. Okay? So, knowing all this, what do you do? I hope it's clear that you don't want to just, one, you don't want to prepare your resume to just list tasks that you've performed, okay, or list classes that you've taken. That's going to set you right in line with everybody else that is at the, I guess, entry point to opportunities, okay? You need to really provide meaningful information about your work experience and your school experience. I should have here. Don't leave the person that you're talking to, whether it's the recruiter, the interviewer, the manager, don't leave them wondering what you did every day, okay? And don't assume that your manager knows the details of what you do either. Again, your manager can be extremely busy, and it's not his or her job to know the details of your job. It's really your job to accomplish what you need to in support of the manager's team, right? So don't assume that he or she knows what you do either and what you've accomplished. Now, if you don't have a lot of work experience, that's okay too. Apply these same concepts to your classwork, class projects, assignments given to you, and just because you got an accounting, or you in the process of getting an accounting degree, don't assume that an interviewer knows that maybe incorporates a mock auditing project, just as an example, right? Talk about something that's significant, different, and particularly something that where you stood out on, that you can demonstrate some of your capabilities. And if you feel like there's nothing yet that you're standing out on, well, now you know what you need to work on, right? You need to make sure you get that experience. You do some of those class projects or assignments that's going to give you something unique to talk about and to demonstrate how you can really go beyond kind of the average candidate. Okay? When you're going through your day-to-day, make a list of what is it that you do. Certainly make a list of the projects that you worked on. Okay? I know that right now, if you're in an internship now, and here we are in July, and Yvonne Harris, if you joined us for previous webinars, has talked about this. Hopefully at the start of your internship, you had a set of goals and what you wanted to accomplish, and then as you've gone along, you've been monitoring, okay, what have I been doing? How's it comparing with what I wanted to do? What kind of projects am I working on? Okay. If you haven't, that's okay. Catch up now. Okay. If you're in a role beyond an internship, if you haven't been making that list, make it now. I would bet that you don't remember kind of details of things that maybe you did 2 or 3 months ago, right? So keep this laundry list of accomplishments and activities, responsibilities, and accomplishments on an ongoing basis. And it will make your review or your interviewing the story so much easier to put together. All right. And in this laundry list, don't just write the tasks, but detail what is it that you covered, what did you lead, how did you contribute, what teams were you a part of, what exactly did you accomplish, right? And everywhere possible, quantify. Quantify as much as you can, because the quantification of things really brings it to life, and it really helps to make it more understandable and relatable from an interviewer's or a manager's mind. Okay, it's just easier to compare and to say, oh, okay, so number of hours worked, and X percent, of the starting class, or whatever the case may be. Quantify wherever possible. Okay, so we're towards the end of the session. I'm going to go over to the question panel now. I see a few questions here, and if you haven't submitted your questions, now's the perfect time to do so. All right. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and start addressing the questions that I have so far. So we have one that says, what if you're still in the process of figuring out which area you want to go in? Okay, and that's okay. So my guess is that you're maybe a student, and you're not yet. So you haven't graduated, obviously, if you're still a student, right? And maybe you have an internship and you're trying some things out. I'll just use tax versus audit as an example because it's easy, and you don't know if you want to go tax or you don't know if you want to go audit. Okay, so you have some discovery to do, and that's okay. But that doesn't take away the need for you to still, make the most of any experience that you have right now. So let's say that you're trying out some tax roles. You took a tax internship, and you need to do the best job you absolutely can in that tax internship. Now, you may find out even early that, okay, tax is not my thing. I don't want to stay in this. All right, that's cool. You found out something really important, right? And in the future, you're not going to pursue tax jobs, but that doesn't take away the importance of doing the best you can in tax. In fact, it could make a very interesting and compelling story that, you took a position in tax temporarily to find out, to learn, and explore where your interests were. And while you're in that position, you did this. Again, quantify as much as you possibly can. You accomplished this. You didn't know how to approach this one problem. This is how you got past the challenge. Make the most of this situation, even if you know that the area is not your long-term goal. But what you're doing is you're showing still your approach to work more generically. But where I think it's particularly compelling is that if you show that very successful and dedicated, determined approach to work, even in an area that you're not passionate about, oh my gosh, it'll be really cool to see your determination and your the work that you can accomplish in an area that you are passionate about. And if you learn about something that isn't your thing, then it's going to probably add to your passion for whenever you do find the area that you are passionate about. Okay, you can be honest, especially early in your career, about, hey, the reality is it's hard to know everything. You just can't. You can't know everything about the different possible courses you want when you're in school or when you've just graduated. Be honest about it, right? But what you can be passionate about is finding your passion. And you can even dispel and show, here are the steps I'm taking so that I can get there. And while I'm taking those steps, here's what I've accomplished. And I think you could really set yourself apart and show that how you have really tackled this in an organized way to meet your goals where you were successful, and where you figured things out, and how you're moving on. Okay. Is also asked here, what do I consider to be a good length of time to stay in a position before looking to advance and find better positions? Okay. From this question, I'm assuming, now I'm thinking it's more of a scenario where maybe it's after graduation and you've taken a job after your graduation. So in other words, it's not an internship, which internships are inherently shorter term positions, right? Okay, so let's say that you have taken a position and the intent was initially, you thought, who knew how long you were going to stay? The ideal length of time at a minimum, in my opinion, is 2 years. I would say as an absolute is 1 year. If you change a position before 1 year, I think the majority of interviewers will probably question you unless you have a really, really good reason of why you couldn't stick it out for that long. The reality of it is, within a year, it can be difficult to really learn all about the opportunities at a job and what you could be learning. So I think you might went into the opinion of some people that you just didn't give it a fair shot, right? Or even if you knew enough about yourself, still sticking it out for 1 year it's a good kind of loyalty and partnership with the company that employed you. And you can still learn a lot during that very first year before you jump ship. Okay, and it probably would be, seen as jumping ship. It's just more of a negative thing. Now, 2 years, after 2 years, I think you're perfectly safe because that's probably a standard, a lot of promotions could be set around the 2 to 3 year period. It's not uncommon to move after a 2 year period. Now, don't feel like you need to change companies after 2 years. Okay, I know that sometimes that also is another attitude out there. It's like, oh, it's been 2 years, I need to change. No, not necessarily. Look at it on your own individual circumstance and make the decision for yourself. Where it can get a little bit tough, I think, is between 1 and 2 years. I would say if you pass that 1 year mark, that minimum 1 year mark, you haven't gotten to the safe 2 year mark, really, it's safer to go towards the 2 year mark before you go gung-ho job searching to find a new position, okay? But if you're out there networking and something comes your way that just is the right fit, moving between after 1 year, even before 2 years, will be fine. If it's really the right fit and you gain some very good experience, you've given fair time to the first employing company, then I think it's fair to move on. Okay. Okay. If another question is, if seeking an accounting position with no actual experience, how can I show that I have some skill or aptitude in the accounting area? Okay, so if you're seeking a position with no actual experience, you need to be seeking a position that doesn't require actual experience, okay? You should be seeking an entry-level position, and that's regardless of if you have experience in other fields, maybe in other jobs. If you're going into a kind of new functional area, and it's a new area for you, then that does put you at the entry-level area for that functional job. Okay. Even at that entry-level area, though, you're still going to have to make yourself stand out because, and by the way, like an entry-level job in the accounting field is still going to require either, if it's an internship, seeking in the process of getting an accounting degree, or if it's after graduation, you'll need to have your accounting degree or possibly finance degree. That could depend upon company. If you're going to maybe a corporate environment. Okay, so again, you have those baselines that you have to show some accomplishment and understanding through probably a degree and a certain a GPA minimum. That minimum may not be very high, so don't let that scare you if you're in a situation where you've struggled, right? But still to where you have learned the baseline knowledge. But beyond that, entry level means entry level. You're going to be building your experience in this position. And you still should talk about, though, beyond those technical and functional skills, what is it that you bring to the table that's going to make you a great employee? And that's a lot of what these capabilities, that's what they're all about. They're showing, you can show why are you in this area. What do you have? What is it that just intrigues you about accounting? What has been your experience? Maybe not work experience, but what is it that you know about this accounting field that why you're driving so hard to get into it and start building your career in it? What have you shown in your past? It could be family related. It could be organization related, where you have really tackled a problem and you know how to work through difficult situations, and that is the way you approach things, and how you excuse me, how you set yourself up for success, and that's the way you will approach your job. You still want to talk about all those other aspects of you as a person, as a potential employee, that'll help you stand out for the appropriate level of job that you're seeking. Okay. Okay. For a person that wants to be well-rounded in the accounting field, is it bad to have multiple interests? So I'm going to kind of interpret this question. I hope I do it correctly. Since we talked about tax and audit before, and kind of one track versus the other, I'm going to assume that you mean, is it bad to have an interest in both tax and audit? Well, so maybe, depending upon the firm. Some firms hire specifically into tax. Some firms hire specifically in audit. Some firms only work on tax. So it could depend upon what the the role that you're seeking right now and what it is that they're trying to fill in looking at you as a candidate. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to take away your interest, though, right? In desire to learn. But if you're going to be hired as an auditor, then you do need to, be able to focus and make sure that you do your auditing work to the best of your capability. So you don't want to be to where it's like, oh, well, I only want to spend 60% of my time on auditing. And some firms that just may not be able to happen. Now, in other firms, some firms are somewhat quite broad, and you can get, exposed to different types of work, especially smaller firms, different types of work more broadly in a role than kind of a very narrow niche. So I would say, I guess first off, do you ever want to limit your interests? No, I don't think so. But you do need to make sure that you understand what you're being hired into. Ask about, in this role, what are the operations of the firm? How do, different areas either work together or not? Is there opportunity for crossover, learning, or, do you need to face up to where, no, you have to be very focused in your work itself? And if so, then make sure that you're taking on the right role that's going to make you happy. Okay? All right. But I will say, we've done a lot of different sessions with, I know you guys all know about the Big Four and large firms because they do a lot of great branding and marketing. And we've tried to do a lot of information on smaller, mid-sized firms, regional firms. And in a lot of that work, and a lot of these I'm listening in and hearing the stories of, people at these firms. They can offer some pretty broad opportunities that allows you to be exposed to the different areas of accounting, and not just exposure, but even doing the different types of work. So if you have that interest of being well-rounded, you might want to make sure that you look at those those size firms, the smaller size firms, to see if they might provide you the opportunity that fits you best. Okay. All right. I know I'm running out of time here. I have a couple more questions. So, ideal resume length, 1 page. If unless you have, let's say, 10 to 15 plus years of experience. Okay, keep it to 1 page. What the reality of what happens is that first off, resumes are scanned very, very quickly. And the people scanning these resumes, they're, if they're a recruiter, that's their professional job. If they're a manager, hopefully they have enough experience to know what they're looking for quickly. It's just there's so many that we talked about, could be thousands. It's certainly probably definitely hundreds. There's just not enough time to read them. So if you can't read 1 page, you're definitely not going to be able to read 2 pages. You need to make sure you get that information on 1 page, front and center, in formatted way, and stand out. Now, next week, Andrew Argue, our webinar topic is with Andrew again. Hope y'all joined us with his previous webinars. He's the host of the Bean Counter. The topic is he's going to do like an online critique of a resume. Okay, so try to join that. Actually, I don't know if he agrees with me on 1 page, but I'll still stand by my opinion that it should be 1 page. But you try to join that webinar if you can, see what he has to say, and obviously he's going to go into more details about the resume. Okay, if you're employed for a couple of, this was a continuation of an earlier question. So, okay, on the being well-rounded, having multiple interests, if you're employed for a couple of years, it still goes back to, regardless of your unemployment or employment before, you need to make sure that whatever you're seeking fits what you want. You need to ask questions, and if you want to be well-rounded, again, I think, take a look at the mid-sized, small firms, regional firms. They may have something just perfect for you. Okay, last question here, and we'll close up. If you're unemployed, this might be the same thing, same person. Let me read it real quickly. If you're an unemployed adult up in age and take on a job because needed, it doesn't quite give you accounting experience. Does it still matter how long you should stay on the job before changing companies? This person received their accounting degree and was unemployed for almost 2 years after receiving their degree. Okay, so this is where a little bit of time has gone by from the degree, and the concern is making sure that, using time as effectively as possible to get the right experience. Okay, does it still matter how long you stay on the job before changing companies? All right. I would say this is a little bit of a different situation than someone joining, like, say, right after getting a degree and then leaving within the first year, which, as you remember before, I said, really don't do that, okay? This is where you already have 2 years of experience of trying to find the right position, okay? So in that 2 years, I hope that you got a good education of what worked, what was right for you, what wasn't right for you, what you wanted, all right? So that means that now you're entering, say, third year. It's in that third year starting employment, which is great. But you find out, you very likely could find out much more quickly that this isn't the right position for you. Okay. I think quitting that position too early is still dangerous. Okay, because you may not have had enough time to find out what that position could all have for you. I do think because of your 2 years of experience of looking for a position, again, that education you got should be able to open up the communication channels, hopefully more. So engage in a conversation with that company. Say, look, this is what I'm looking for. In the interview stage, do this. This is what I'm looking for. Do you think it's, fitting here? And then if you take the job and it's not, say, this is, it's not turning out as what, let's talk through it. I know this is what I want after my 2 years of, looking for a job. It's not fitting out. What can we do? All right. Try to expand that time in that third year as long as possible. You need the experience. You need the practical experience built up on your resume. But you can still, at the same time, work hard to drive that experience to where you want it to be, and that will ultimately lead you in the right career path. Okay, and why you can take more of a driving role is because you had those 2 years where you were in a job search and it just wasn't working out. But you should have learned a lot in those 2 years. All right, so I hope that's clear, and I hope that's helpful. All right, I've gone over today. Sorry about that. I hope this was helpful. Again, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you really had a good time and found something useful. And I hope y'all join us. In coming up webinars. We're launching a newsletter very soon, where you should not just get emails on these, but a nice little newsletter format to keep you updated on what webinars we have coming up. So anyway, thanks, y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.